The Muslim Public Affairs Council met in Long Beach, California earlier this month. Speaking at the gathering, Congressman Ted Lieu and Congressman Xavier Becerra, who's been appointed California's next Attorney General. Also the top FBI agent in Los Angeles and representatives from the White House and the New York City mayor.
Good evening to every one of you. Thank you. Omar, thank you very much. To Salam Amariyati and to everyone at Mpac, thank you for believing, for always working, for always being there for so many people who believe in the U.S. Constitution, believe in this country's motto, if you work hard and play by the rules, you will get ahead. And thank you for bringing everyone together who believes that the future of this country can be strong. I want to congratulate the honorees for tonight. You have two very distinguished individuals who you will honor tonight. I want to thank some of the people who will speak here, like my colleague Ted Lieu from Congress. I know that you'll be joined by many others. You are going to have some very distinguished speakers, like Mr. Khan, who will be here. And Mr. Khan is someone who has etched himself in the heart and mind of so many Americans by the words he and his wife have spoken on behalf of his son. And I simply want to say a few things to you as you prepare for 2017. You are important. You are important for the things that you do together, but you are important in ways that you wouldn't recognize. You make it possible for many of us to not only be friend and colleague, but you also give us the talent of tomorrow. I was very fortunate. Basman Nada is an intern in my office, in my communications shop. She came from the work that Mpac does with its Congressional Leadership Development Program. I want to thank everyone at Mpac for making it possible for me to have Basma working on my staff. And perhaps most importantly, I want you to know that, and I suspect many of us could say this, I know you. I know you much better than you know. I know you because I suspect you work hard and you live by your values and you play by the rules. I know you because you build bridges, not walls. I know you because you believe and fight for our Constitution. And I know you because you want essentially what my parents wanted when they came to this country, what I want, to be able to tell our children that we will own our own home, we will send them to college, and then we will be able to retire in dignity after all the hard work we give to this country. I know you. That's what this is all about. And because I know you, because I am the son of immigrants, because I love America, my country so much, because I am a member of Congress, and because I have been fortunate to be tapped by Governor Brown to be the next Attorney General for the state of California, I want you to know that I stand with you. I will make sure that you can say with pride that I have your back. And I want you to know that after all is said and done, when we stand here, when we fight together, when we hug because of the values that we share in this great country, I want you to know it's because I know you better than you think. Let us work together because we know each other much more than people think, and we will work together to make this country prosperous and strong. Thank you very much for having me here.
Now I have the honor to introduce another friend of Mpac, an advocate for the Muslim community, Congressman Ted Lieu, who earlier this year posted on his social media that he was donating to Mpac because of the divisive rhetoric he heard during the presidential campaign and knew that Mpac would be working to create counter-narratives to that type of rhetoric. Congressman Lieu.
Good evening. It is my honor to be here. Let me first
thank and recognize my great colleague Xavier Becerra. He's going to be an amazing Attorney General for the state of California. So let's give him a big round of applause. And I'm so pleased you asked me to give some remarks tonight. Before I do that, I do want to recognize your co-founder and your president, Salam El-Marayati, for his amazing 28 years of dedication to serving the community. I'd like to call Salam up. I have here a certificate of congressional recognition, and it reads, in recognition and celebration of your 28 years of dedication to serving the Muslim community in America, and with sincere appreciation for your work upholding core American values and preserving constitutionally protected freedoms for all Americans. Congratulations. Get a picture here. So I'm going to talk about two issues. The first is the discrimination that you and I have faced and will likely continue to face, and then how we can fight against that. This is not the first time I spoke at Mpac. 4 years ago, I had the honor of speaking here, and I was deeply humbled when you recognized me for my work in being the first elected official to stand up and challenge their home improvement company Lowe's and other companies when they withdrew their advertisements from the TV show All American Muslim. I believe it was based on a bigoted and fearful response, and we stood up and worked with other organizations and challenged that company. And what we see now is echoes of that starting to happen. And one reason I reacted so strongly to that incident is because it reminded me of discrimination I encountered. Different ethnic groups in America encounter different kinds of discrimination. There is a form of discrimination that is somewhat unique to one that affects Asian Americans and American Muslims. And it goes like this. When some Americans look at you and I, their first thought is that we're not American, that we are not loyal to this country, that somehow we're suspicious, that we're second-class citizens. And that has had a series of profoundly negative effects in our country's history. Within the Asian American community, you had the whole yellow peril hysteria earlier in our country's history, followed by the Chinese Exclusion Act. Then you had the alien land laws that prevented any Asian American from holding land, followed by the internment of over 100,000 Americans who happened to be of Japanese American descent. And then you had the killing of Vincent Chen, the solitary confinement of Wen-Ho Lee, and last year you had 5 separate cases where defendants were alleged to have committed espionage, only to have all those charges dropped a few months later. And the only thing that was the same among all those 5 separate cases, the defendants looked like me. They were all Asian American. And then within the Muslim American community, you have gone through an entire presidential campaign where there were racist and bigoted attacks against this community. You had to hear the president-elect talk about banning Muslims. You have had people close to him talk about a Muslim registry, and you have had a lot of very negative stereotypes being put out there. And what I want you to know is that I will be a voice in Congress for you. I will fight for you. I will fight for you. I will defend you. I will stand with you. Because if they come after you, they are coming after me. We are all in this same boat together, in this amazing country called America. We rise and fall as a nation, not as individual subgroups. And our framers were pretty smart, and here's why I think we have hope. They put in a pretty good system of checks and balances. They created an entire Congress as a check on presidential power. They created an entire judiciary as a check on governmental power. And this is going to lead to my next subject, which is things that you can do. You can do what I did. You can give more money to Mpac. I gave more money earlier this year. I gave money to Mpac earlier this year because I was so offended about some of the rhetoric I was seeing in the presidential campaign. I also became a donor to the ACLU and a donor to the Southern Poverty Law Center, who go in. They go in every day and fight for your constitutional rights. You can also work on different public rallies. You can go to join the Million Women March on January 21st. You can run for office. You can also take part in community events. You can be what you're doing right now. You can be a good and active participant in the community, and think also about writing letters to the editor and op-eds. It does turn out that the Washington Post and New York Times, they do get a lot of letters to the editor. It also turns out many of them are written by the same people. So if you start doing it, then eventually your voices will be heard as well. And at the end of the day, if we stand together, if we fight together, we're going to show the voters of America that there's a right way to do this and a wrong way to do this. And in 2 years, the voters will be able to vote again and make a judgment. And in 4 years, they will do that again as well. So look forward to working with all of you. And again, I'm deeply honored you asked me to speak. And I am now going to recognize 2 of your awardees tonight. And the first person I'm going to introduce is Rumana Ahmed. I'm going to give her introduction. I'm going to call her up, and then I'm going to give her an Mpac Award. Rumana currently serves as a senior advisor to President Obama's Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes at the White House. She has been instrumental in getting the Muslim American voice not only heard, but understood by the Obama administration. Rumana helps to develop the messaging for President Obama when he meets with Muslims and visits mosques. 2 years ago, she hosted a Muslim Women Emerging Leaders event at the White House, bringing together model women and young girls aspiring to pursue careers in journalism, government, business, and STEM. She is the only hijabi woman working in the West Wing of the White House during this administration, and possibly the first hijab to ever work in the West Wing. So, Rumana, why don't you come on up, and you have this very, very cool award. And I'm going to present it to you, and I'm just going to read. It says, "In the name of God, most compassionate, most merciful, to each is the goal to which God turns him, then strive together as in a race towards all that is good. Whosoever you are, God will bring you together, for God has power over all things."
First of all, I want to thank Congressman Lieu for the honor of even just being on the stage with him. As somebody who, as a child and growing up, was on the camp of not believing in government, never being interested in politics, always hating politics, and always wanting to stay far, far away from government, it's a true honor to be here on stage with him and to be honored by him. And I say that as somebody who has converted, having been on the inside and having had the opportunity of working in government and having learned the true impact that you can have on individual lives. I'll share a little bit about more about my experience a little later, but before I do, I also really want to thank Mpac, Salam, and Huda for their leadership and for this great honor of having me here. More importantly, for also getting me out of DC for a little bit to warmer weather. I definitely appreciate it. I also really want to take a moment to thank Mpac, Salam, and Huda for having always played such a key role in engaging the White House and across all government agencies all these years. They've always been at the table, and if there's anything that I have learned, that having a seat at the table is more important and critical than just being on the menu to be discussed. I also want to recognize them for something that I often don't see in many other organizations that I have truly admired about Mpac. And that is how, as you may have noticed, it's run by all these young, innovative, and energetic leaders. I first joined. Oftentimes it's a little hard to give young leaders the opportunity because they don't have as much experience, they don't know what they're doing. But if there's anything that I learned myself As someone who freshly came out of college with no work experience, no government experience, someone gave me the opportunity and put their trust in me in the White House. And through that opportunity, by failing and falling, by losing sometimes, I learned to be better, I learned to be stronger, and I learned to be wiser. And that's how I was able to move up within the White House, and that's how we are going to be able to strengthen and empower the young leaders of our next generation. I want to share a few things that I've learned and that I really want to share with this group, especially given the time that we're living in right now and recent developments that have taken place. That is, I learned the importance under this administration of the importance of grassroots organizing, building partnerships. It's not just about standing for one issue, it's standing for every issue. And we saw that most recently take place at Standing Rock, where it wasn't just an issue of the Native American community to stand on their own, but it became everyone's problem. We no longer can look at it as a Black Lives Matter issue or a Muslim issue. It's all of our issues. That's the only... After the election, people have come to me and they said, what do we do with the Muslim American community? And I was like, it's not going to work that way. We can't just plan about the Muslim American community. We have to plan across every community because that's how we're going to be stronger. It's important to know your rights because knowledge is strength, and so is personality. When I first started working at the White House, my first day in the West Wing, I felt very conscious of myself. I wasn't sure how people would see me. I was nervous, to be honest. I wasn't sure if people would see me as normal and fitting in, or that I had the same experience as others just because of my looks. I never felt that way again until the day after the election. I became conscious of the fact that I had the greatest opportunity because of this country, because of the values of this country. I was given that chance, I was given that right, and I was able to work in the most prestigious building in the entire U.S. Personality and character mattered in the process of that. Right now, we're living in a time where not everybody has gotten to know me, or has gotten to know a Muslim American, or a Native American, or an African American. That's where it's our responsibility to make sure that we're lifting up voices across every community, and to share those stories. The other thing that I learned that is a reminder for us all right now, which is the 4 P's that I follow by. That's patience, perseverance, persistence, and prayer. That is what is going to get us through the toughest times that we're about to face. And at the end of the day, we know that it will make us stronger and better. I always remind myself, looking back at the Civil Rights Movement, which was a perfect example. People were hurt, people were killed, people suffered. And now look where we are today. It's still not perfect. The African American community is still facing a lot of challenges, but we've come a long way. And that's the hope and dream of this country that we know will prevail at the end, which is that we will come together stronger and more powerful. The last piece that I want to leave you with is, as a child, post 9/11 in middle school, as someone who was called a terrorist, who was told to leave this country, who was pushed down the stairs, never in a million years did I imagine that I would get to work for this president at the White House. And like myself, I've met so many more incredible people and individuals through the work at the White House, such as a young woman from Palestine that I met a few years ago in Morocco, who had started an entrepreneurship, a business program to empower other women. Such as a woman in Colombia who, with very little resources, created a farming program and training initiative for other women so that they could become entrepreneurs. Also, more recently, I met at the White House a group of 4 young Cuban entrepreneurs. And each of them had barely any money, yet they said they knew that with the little that they had a role to play to make the world better. And while it was a little bit funny, it reminded me of how all these years we may have actually just been too comfortable. So now it's our turn to work 10 times harder. These 4 Cubans that I met with, they asked me, they're like, so what's going to happen to you? Are you going to be allowed to stay in this country? And I said, I don't know, but I'm going to fight for that. And they immediately offered to me, and again, these are people with very little resources, they said to me, the one who's a business advisor, she said, don't worry, I'll get you a business in Cuba. The other one who's a party planner said, I'll plan your welcome party when you get to Cuba. And the other one owns a bread and breakfast, and she said, I'll provide you with food and a home to live in. And while at that moment it was a little sad to hear that, but also encouraging, the biggest thing that I walked away with is that compassion. It's something that exists in all of humanity, and even in the worst of times, we have to remember that it's compassion that's going to prevail. These individuals worked hard with very little, and yet they still dream big. I truly do believe that in the darkest of the times that we will face and that we may face, comes the greatest moments of opportunity. So with that, I just want to say that I've had a lot of people, I know we're all talking about what's happening, what's going on, but we have to stay positive, we have to work hard, we have to work 100 times harder. And I'm proud to know that organizations like Mpac exist out there, and I look forward to working with Mpac and many of the other organizations once I leave. Thank you.
The next awardee is Sayeed. Sarah has served as a bridge between the city of New York and the Muslim community for many years. She is a senior advisor in the Community Affairs Unit for New York City Mayor de Blasio. She has been an essential link between the mayor's office and community in resolving many civil liberties issues regarding the targeting of Muslims in New York. Prior to the mayor's office, Sarah worked for 7 years at the Interfaith Center of New York as the director of community partnerships. In this capacity, she designed and executed the Rabbi Marshall T. Meyer Retreats for Social Justice, a biannual conference that brings together New York's diverse grassroots religious leaders with secular and city agencies. Between 2010 and 2015, she also worked to bring together Catholic and Muslim social service providers in providing dialogue and joint action. And let's give her a great round of applause for receiving this Mpac Award.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening. Thank you so much to Salam and the entire Mpac family. Thank you, Congressmember Lieu, and congratulations to Rumana. It's truly an honor to be here with all of you, and on a day when we are marking the birthday of our Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This award, more than recognizing me, is an affirmation that we are building beautiful connections in New York City between the city and Muslim New Yorkers. Building a bridge, the theme of this conference, is only needed when there are two land masses that want that connection, that want to be connected. So I want to credit New York City Muslim communities on the one hand, and Mayor Bill de Blasio on the other, for your openness to engagement and stronger relationships. Without that desire, I would not be here, and there would be no bridge. A bridge, also, as we know, has two anchors or end bearings. I'm grateful to God that I have my faith and spirituality as one of those anchors. I'm also grateful to my family, who have gotten used to not seeing me very often, but they offer their unconditional love and nurturing. Thank you. In my first week on the job as senior advisor, and this was back in June of 2015, I got a call from the office of the chief medical examiner. They wanted my help to develop more culturally responsive services for Muslims in New York City. For those who don't know, the CME office handles autopsies, which are legally required in the event of criminal or unexpected death. They knew in the ME office that the Islamic rule is burial within 24 hours, and we have a religious objection to autopsy. The ME had dealt with a family who were objecting to the autopsy, and it ended up delaying the burial because they all had to negotiate. Lawyers got involved, and as we know, when lawyers get involved, things take a lot of time. So they were calling me because they wanted to avoid having to go through that in cases where families were objecting, if possible. So we've been working together to create a system and a process that would counsel families who object, and it would also educate the ME offices, hospitals, and precincts on Muslim burial laws. This kind of effort at the local level is a crucial effort that we need to engage in that allows us to align our values and Islamic guidelines with secular law. But what's challenging about doing this kind of work is that we're doing it in a charged national security backdrop. So part of my job is to get better at rapid response and to help build trust between law enforcement and New York City communities, and to create policies and programs that respect civil rights and safeguard the city. And as we know, terrorist violence feeds a dark rhetoric about Islam and Muslims, and this has ultimately resulted in backlash that has targeted Arabs, Muslims, Sikhs, anyone who looks Muslim. Through public safety and Know Your Rights forums, we've been educating New Yorkers about their rights to identity safety, protection from discrimination, and their rights as immigrants. But as we engage on issues of security and safety, we have to remember that Muslims, more than victims and terrorists, are first and foremost human beings. Stories like the one I just shared about the medical examiner are not about national security, and they're not about backlash. Muslims have stories about living their lives as everyday New Yorkers, as everyday Americans. And that's the story that I'm most interested in and that I think we need to work together to uplift. Stories that are about us as human beings. Stories about our giving birth, growing up, growing old, and dying. Stories about our struggles to help make ends meet, to pay the rent. Stories about how we are giving back, reaching out, and building bridges. Salam asked me to talk about what is redeeming in my work, and I would say it's moments like the one I talked about, meeting with the chief medical examiner, bringing together South Asian, Arab, African business owners to discuss fair contracting policies in the city, finding ways to work together with the city on domestic violence, working together to feed the homeless. These are the stories that showcase who we are in our fullness, in our humanity, and our dignity. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to do this work on behalf of Muslim New Yorkers and Muslim Americans and Muslims worldwide in one of the biggest, and I won't say the best, but maybe I'll say the best cities in the world, and to work for Mayor Bill de Blasio, who is one of the most progressive and visionary leaders today. Thank you again to Mpac for recognizing me and for recognizing New York City with this Changemaker Award. Assalamu alaikum.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Woolery. I'm the Special Agent in charge for counterterrorism and crisis response for the Los Angeles FBI. It is indeed an honor to stand before you today, though these lights are very bright, so I can only see about a third of you. I'm glad to be here. I think I have something important to say. My dear friend Salam invited me, and I have a funny story to tell just before I get started. So Salam sends an email to me a couple of weeks ago to remind me of this occasion, this fantastic event. And he says, hey, we got celebrities, we got some congressmen, some senators, we've got a schedule, we got to keep it tight. You got 5 minutes. So, okay, 5 minutes. So to me, in my mind, what that tells me is I need to follow the 5 B's of public speaking. The 5 B's of public speaking. Be brief, brother. Be brief. So I'm here to talk to you tonight about a topic that has trended upward here recently. It's something that's near and dear to us, and it's something that, thank you. And it's something that we can all be a part of. We all need to be conscious of this. We need to be aware so that we can protect ourselves. Hate crime. I'm going to define hate crime for you so you know what it is the FBI looks at when we're investigating these things. When we come into the community and we investigate. Hate crime is a traditional offense, a traditional criminal offense like murder, arson, or vandalism, with the added element of bias. Congress has defined a hate crime as a crime against a person or property motivated by bias toward race, religion, ethnicity, disability, or sexual orientation. The FBI's jurisdiction to investigate hate crime is primarily predicated on 4 federal statutes, which generally require 3 circumstances: the use of force or the threat of the use of force, or conspiracy to use force, or conspiracy and the threat to use force. Secondly, targeting victims because of race, color, religion, or national origin. And thirdly, additional motives to injure, intimidate, or interfere with some specific federally protected activity or right. So I just armed you with a definition of hate crime so that, God forbid, if you encounter instances of this kind of crime, or you think you've encountered instances of this kind of crime, you now know that you can report it. You now know what to report. You can report it to your local police department, you can report it to the FBI, you can report it to the leadership in your Islamic center. The bottom line is that you have to act. I'm standing up here, I'm talking to you, I'm explaining to you, making you aware of what it is we need to know so that we can come out and protect you. But it requires you to act as well, right? Because we're a community. So I implore upon you to, if you see these instances of bias or hate, please report them. There is a situation here where we experience underreporting in hate crimes. So we need to get that information so that we can do our jobs. The other thing I want to talk to you about is something that happened on November 28th that had to do with a number of letters that were sent through the U.S. mail system to a number of Islamic centers here in Southern California and also across the country. And the vitriol nature of those letters, just the awful language that was contained in those letters, and the question of whether or not it was a hate crime. And there was a lot of media attention. There was a lot of interest. There were a lot of questions. There were a lot of fears, right? And what we did, the community, and Mpac was a big part of that. Salam called me, and he said, hey, let's do something about this. Let's get out into the community. Let's bring our partners together, and let's make a unified message, a unified statement to stand against this type of criminal behavior. To let the community know that we are one community and that we are here together for this common fight. I use the saying, see something, say something, but also to do something, right? It's not enough for us to just see it and then maybe say something, but we got to do something. We got to call it in. We have to, make people aware of what's going on. An educated community is a safer community. So there's two things I want to add to this. One is leadership. On November 28th, as the community stood in front of the media and talked to the community about these letters, the imagery of us standing together, united, that's leadership. That's leadership. But the other thing we need to do is we need to grow that leadership into partnerships. And what do I mean by that? I mean that at a grassroots level, we need to make sure that everyone understands how unified we are. We look different. We do different things. But are we really different? I think we're more similar than we are different. We are more similar than we are different. And we showed on the 28th how unified we can be. And those partnerships were important that day. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about threats. We hear about threats all day, every day. It's in the media, it's international, it's global. We saw last Monday how a threat was called into a national hotline center in Australia that had to do with the Metro Red Line here in LA. And we saw how that threat, it was an anonymous tip, but how that threat galvanized the community, it galvanized your law enforcement agencies so that we could go do our jobs and we could protect you. But we talk about threats all the time. But I submit to you, as I close, and I think I went beyond my 5 minutes. Sorry about that so long. But I submit to you that our greatest threat is a situation where we as a community are not unified. That's our greatest threat. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand with you tonight, building bridges, breaking barriers. Good evening.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of the divine, the most compassionate, the most merciful, Assalamu alaikum, peace be on to each of you. Before I start, I think Salam's trying to play a trick on me, having a federal public defender go up after an FBI agent. We usually like to see them on the witness stand. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Seema Ahmed, and I have the blessing of standing before you as the chair of the board of the Muslim Public Affairs Council. Thank you. Thank you. I say blessing because in these political trying times, there is no place, no group, no organization that I feel more humbled to call my brothers and sisters than each of you that are here as part of Mpac. I know that many of us are feeling fear and anxiety and despair about the recent election and the direction of American politics. But the antidote to fear is action. And that is what Mpac has been about for the last 30 years. What I personally love about Mpac is at a time when our religion is under such vicious attack, Mpac represents the highest ideals of our faith. Just as a young Baptist minister named Martin Luther King relied on his Christian faith to advance the cause of civil rights. Mpac, grounded in the Islamic ethos of justice, has always worked for the betterment of American Muslims. But what is critical, and this is really important, Mpac has never been just about Muslims. Since I was a young girl, Mpac has been singularly focused on the idea that when American Muslims prosper, and when justice prospers, then America as a whole prospers. And for that reason, for the last 30 years, we have stood by other communities just as we are doing right now. Right now, we are standing with the most vulnerable amongst us, our undocumented immigrant brothers and sisters who are working to combat mass deportations. We are standing with our Jewish brothers and sisters at Bend the Arc, and we put together a petition to oppose the appointment of Steve Bannon. And just this week, we delivered that petition to Congress with over 1 million signatures. After the tragedy in Orlando, Mpac stood on the steps of the Islamic Center of Southern California with LGBT clergy and leaders to affirm the human dignity of our LGBT brothers and sisters. And similarly, we have taken positions on mass incarceration, gun violence, and law enforcement safety as well. And what this means is that our work for the last 30 years has poised us precisely for the challenge that is ahead. We are resilient, and we are not alone. I want every Muslim and every Muslim young person that is in this room of 1,300 people to hear this loud and clear. You are not alone. Thanks to the work of Mpac, you heard from our powerful elected officials, and I think I speak for all of us. Congressman Ted Lieu and our soon-to-be California Attorney General Xavier Becerra were just so touching and personal in their sincerity in working to protect us and use their power to protect us. We heard from law enforcement, from the FBI, that pledged to keep us safe. And after dinner, we'll hear from artists like Young the Giant, and Hollywood and media superstars like George Takei, Mr. Khizr Khan, and Van Jones, who know the hearts of our community and who will use their megaphones to amplify our voice. Because of the alliances that we have built for the last 30 years, we are ready to continue the fight for all American Muslims. There are a few really beautiful verses from the Quran that really capture what I'm saying tonight, and I know many of us in the room are familiar with them. The Quran teaches us and says, "Truly with hardship comes ease. With hardship comes ease." And it's such a simple verse and yet so profound. And I think it's profound because it's true for all of us. We all have personal hardship in our lives, whether it's loss or sickness or difficulties in our families or in our jobs. And I think we know that with hardship, yes, ease does come. But it only comes when we've taken action, when we've processed that loss or fought that disease or had a difficult conversation with a family member or a colleague. Well, now we are in a collective moment of hardship. And although we so desperately want that ease to come, the Quran teaches us that we have to act for it. There's another verse in the Quran that says, "On those believers who do righteous deeds, the all-compassionate shall ordain love on those individuals." And it's such a beautiful verse. It doesn't distinguish between Muslim and non-Muslim, man and woman, race. It talks about doing righteous deeds as the path towards love. And what that verse does is transform all of us. We are not passive victims. We are the privileged and we are the lucky that get to do good and do right in times of difficulty. To that end, all of you know that Mpac has to exponentially increase our work over the next year. Our 2017 budget is $1.8 million. And so I am asking all of us here to make a commitment for us to raise a significant portion of our 2017 budget. And I am setting a target of $250,000 for tonight as our fundraising goal. There are 3 ways to give. You can, and all of it is tax deductible, you can write a check using the envelopes on your tables. You can flag down one of our volunteers who are wearing blue scarves to give them a credit card, or you can visit mpac.org/give. And I urge you that in that moment of despair, take action and donate generously. Just a couple housekeeping items before I'm done. As you're donating, please do so from your seats. The servers are now ready to serve dinner and will be coming through and need access to the aisles. And in about 45 minutes, if you could help us move the program along by taking your seats swiftly, we would really appreciate it. It's really wonderful to be with all of you and have all of you in this room. Thank you so much and enjoy your evening. And enjoy your evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you very much. I'm George Takei, and a few days ago, this past week, on December 7th, we observed Pearl Harbor Day, a very significant day, the day 75 years ago when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor and plunged the world into a Second World War. That bombing revealed the military vulnerability of America, but it also revealed another vulnerability. Our democracy is a people's democracy, and the people are easily stampeded. The horror of the bombing of Pearl Harbor swept through this country, and there was a wave of war hysteria and racism directed at Americans of Japanese ancestry. Overnight, we who look like the people of people who bombed Pearl Harbor were looked at with suspicion and fear and outright hostility, simply because we look like the people that bombed Pearl Harbor. That hysteria swept across this country, and it revealed how vital leadership from the community, and particularly from the elected officials, are to a people's democracy. And at that time, the political leadership failed. Here in California, we had an attorney general. He knew the law. He knew the Constitution. He was the top lawyer of the state of California. But he was ambitious. He wanted to run for governor. And he saw that the single most popular issue in California in the early 40s was the Lock Up the Japanese movement. And so this attorney, who knew the law, who knew the Constitution, got in front of the Lock Up the Japanese movement. And he made an amazing statement. He said, "We have no reports of sabotage or spying or fifth column activities by Japanese Americans." And that is ominous. Because the Japanese are inscrutable. You don't know what they're thinking. And so it would be prudent to lock them up before they do anything. So for this attorney, the absence of evidence was the evidence. And that fed into the hysteria of that period. And that hysteria went all the way up to the top leadership of the nation, the presidency of the United States. When President Roosevelt ordered all Japanese Americans on the West Coast, approximately 120,000 of us, to be summarily rounded up and put in barbed wire prison camps. That attorney ran for governor and won a resounding victory. He was reelected twice, and then he went on to be named the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. His name is Earl Warren, who goes down in history as the great liberal Supreme Court Chief Justice. I like to think he was that because he was stricken by guilt, his conscience, for what he did right before the war. But this is how vulnerable a people's democracy is. Our democracy can do great things, as we well know. The founding of this country on the shining ideals. But the people are fallible human beings. And so it is important that we be mindful of that. We are in a changed world today, and that change is personified by our new Attorney General, Xavier Becerra, from whom you just heard. He has been a strong and audible voice for what is right, what is just. And he will be an equally strong Attorney General for this state. You heard from Ted Lieu, Congressman, as a matter of fact, my congressman in the United States Congress. I knew him before he was a congressman. He was an assemblyman, but I knew him from before the time he served in the California Assembly. He was an active leader in the Japanese or the Asian American community. And the fact that you have people like that standing for the Muslim Public Affairs Council is very strengthening. And I'm proud to stand with them in support of Mpac, because Mpac has been serving the community for 30 years now, making a strong stand for diversity of the people, of many different ethnicities, of many different faiths, of many different cultures, and that infinite diversity and infinite combination working together in concert, because that is the strength of our system. Good people working together, organized and speaking loudly and clearly, engaged with the democratic process. That is what's going to make this circumstance today different. We are all standing strong with the Muslim Public Affairs Council. When I heard that first trial balloon a few weeks ago from Carl Higbee, a surrogate for the Trump administration, or Trump transition team, I knew exactly what was going to be coming down. He talked about a Muslim registry, which was a chilling echo for me because back in the 40s, they had a Japanese-American database. They're using the word registry, but it's the same thing as what came down on us, a database, where they knew where we were, how many lived in that household, and what we did. And after they had a database, they came down with a curfew. All Japanese Americans had to be home by 7 p.m. and stay at home until 6 a.m. We were imprisoned at night in our homes. And then we discovered that our bank accounts were frozen. Our life savings became inaccessible. And that was followed by the soldiers coming to take us away. That must never happen again today. And so I am proud to be here with you tonight and see the kind of strength that the Muslim Public Affairs Council has, the contributions that have been made, and my husband and I have made our contribution to supporting the Mpac program. We are here as Americans who believed in the cherished ideals of our people's democracy, and we the people will sing out in concert that we are Americans proud of our American ideals, and we will never forsake them. Thank you very much for what you are doing.
Please be seated. Please be seated. Thank you. Thank you. Honorable guests, thank you. Thank you for your courtesy. Thank you for inviting. Thank you for making me part of this dignified event. I will have two parts of my comments before you. One is to update you where we stand today, where I stand today, where we Muslims stand today, because I've been traveling state to state, altogether about 25 states that I have traveled, and I have met with Muslim community, and I have met with the children of Muslim community, elders of Muslim community. I have sat with them and asked them questions, what worries them, what bothers them. And the second part is, in my humble opinion, what we could be doing, what we should be doing, or what we are doing that will make the difference. First, when we started this journey, it was not for ourselves. It was for the sake of small children that were worried about that ugly political rhetoric and the speech in which we were threatened, Hispanic Americans were threatened, women were threatened, judges were threatened. And whenever I would go to a home of Muslim small children or our friends in Hispanic community, the small children will come to me and ask, you're an attorney, Please tell us, are we going to be thrown out of this country? Parents would say children don't want to go to school with this fear in their mind that when they say that if we went to school, when we come back, we may not find you because our friends in school taunt us, tease us. It was that was in our mind when the invitation came, so we got up and we stood there and we waved that Constitution. What we were trying to do is to highlight the values of the Constitution of the United States, the values of freedom of speech, freedom of practice of religion, equal dignity, equal protection of law, and due process of law. And those values are challenged today. We continue to speak. I have not stopped. I was thinking after the election, my engagements will slow down, but believe me, by the Muslim communities, by other organizations, good organizations like ACLU, my engagements have increased manyfold to come and speak, come and appraise the community about what is taking place, and share the safeguards that these good organizations, which is hosting this event. And I'll tell you the value and the importance of the work that this organization does and is doing and will be doing. So my engagements have increased manyfold, but in each and every community I go, same question is asked, and that question is, are we going to be okay? Are our children going to be okay? What about our civil liberties? What about our civil rights? Please continue to speak. Please tell other organizations continue to speak. So we do. We continue to speak because that is one way of challenging. It's one way those challenge these civil liberties. Look at the example of the movement of civil rights in this country. The rights that we enjoy, we take those rights for granted. Our civil rights leader had to struggle for many years, had to offer so many sacrifices so that we will have the dignity and we will have our civil rights. Time has come that we all stand up. We all realize that the values that we cherish so much, values of equal dignity, equal protection of law, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, that we have cherished, that we stand, we defend those values, we stand, we remain, we speak, we announce very loudly. And always remember that in history there had been many a times when these values in this country have been challenged. But the good people of that time stood and defended these values, and today we cherish. This time shall pass, but our role is defined by history, that we are chosen to defend these values, and we should remain standing, we should remain firm. The entire country, I travel city to city, community to community. As I face them, I face one more thing that is so heartening, that is so important for us to note. Among us sit the leaders of faith, leaders of other faiths and Muslim faith. It is the interfaith interaction that will strengthen us. I have been to communities where when I see the interaction of interfaith leaders with the community, the incidences, the events of harassment, events of threatening our faith and our identity had been very less. So interfaith leaders are source of strength for us. We should remember we should increase our interfaith activity. We should increase and we should highlight our organizations, and within those organizations we should include the members of other faiths to come and join hand with us. Your community is a shining example of all the good things that are taking place, but that is only here or a couple of other places in Chicago and Washington, D.C. But go further. That is why when I come to the point in my conversation with you that what we should be doing, first, I want you, all of us that are present here, or within the reach of my voice, I want you to promise yourself, I want you to empty your wallets tonight. I want you to donate. That is one thing that you can do momentarily. I want organizations like this where I am standing, where you are sitting, to have office in each and every state of United States. That is how we are going to make the difference. Inshallah, next year, this organization will have 50 offices, not 3 offices, and that will only happen if all of us do our part and we donate and we contribute generously. That is our obligation to make this, to fight the fight that lies ahead, all of us. That is one thing. Second thing, always remember, whenever I ask our Muslim community, how many counties are in United States? Different answers. There are approximately 3,100 counties in United States. Each county has a county clerk. I am sharing with you a technique that should be used so effectively, that would be so effective in having our voice heard in each and every county wherever Muslims live. And that is that each county has citizens boards of various activities. Citizens board that selects and monitors police activities, citizens board that grants permits, citizens board that does the city planning, citizens board that watches schools, citizens board that approves funding for the police department and police activities. I want Muslims to pick up telephone. If you really want to have voice in this system, in this country, pick up the phone and ask the county clerk's office, could you mail, I am a citizen of this, the resident of this county, can you send me the vacancies that are open so I could apply for them? It is only that telephone call that they will be so glad to hear from a Muslim. They will be so glad to include you in whatever commissions, whatever boards you wish to join. That is the grassroots activity that you can start at your own when you feel so overwhelmed that I am afraid that my faith, my identity, faith of other immigrants is being challenged. What can I do at my level beside contributing to organizations like this? Second thing is volunteer. Become member of the boards that I mentioned, member of the commissions that each county has. Become members, be voice, and it takes only, I've been told by the mayors, by their offices, that Muslims shy away from that activity. They should be participating in such an activity. More important is that we need to have these conversations not only once a year or twice a year, more often. Next few years, we should have these gatherings more often, fundraising more often, getting together, speaking, having our agenda more often, not once a year. It could be at smaller scale, but this conversation must continue. You do not know, I do not know where this conversation that we are having tonight is going to go, how far this conversation is going to go. Make sure that we continue to speak. It is our civic obligation. We are not only Muslim American. I always, whenever anybody asks me and whenever there is an opportunity, I always say, I am patriotic American Muslim. Never underestimate the power of your statement. When you say, I am patriotic American Muslim, it is heard loud and clear. Make sure that when we are honored with the citizenship of this country, with that honor comes the responsibility of making sure that we keep this country safe, make sure that we are protector of the values of this country, make sure that we are protector of the goodness of this country, the fundamental values of this country. I always implore Muslims, and especially our youth, to go read, find out the Constitution of Medina, the Covenant of Medina. It has a different name, but in today's political science language, it will be called the Dasturul Medina. The Prophet wrote that document. It is embodiment of pluralism. All faiths, all ethnicities, all languages are represented in that document with equal dignity. Each one has place of worship. So if somebody wishes to ask about your faith, make sure beside Quran and Hadith, you make mention of Covenant of Medina, Constitution of Medina, that dignifies the value of pluralism that is so inherent in our faith. We shy away from that discussion. Finally, I want to share this, and I want to promise something what lies ahead. In every event that I have gone, I have asked the inclusion of our youth, because that is where the solution lies for us Muslims and for immigrants, that we prepare, that we prepare our youth, that we prepare them for the leadership of the future, that we hand over the baton to them, but with preparation, that each and every organization like this, where we sit tonight, is a tremendous resource. We should ask its leadership. They do have leadership preparation program that sends our youth to Congress, and they are involved with the congressional programs. But I ask something totally different. I ask this because this need is throughout the country among Muslims and other immigrants, and that is to prepare our youth, to prepare our future generation in their home base, in their counties where they are stationed. Prepare them how to be the candidates, not just the votes. Prepare them, train them how to do the fundraising, how to write the platform, how to have the volunteers, how to gather them, how to have the support of the community. These are 4 or 5 things that we must do, and we do it immediately. And we should start it not tomorrow, but today, so that we are ready. 2017 elections are right here. I already been approached by several candidates in Virginia where I live. Would you campaign with us? Would you support us? What issues you want us to be talking about when we come to Muslim community? You are tremendously resourceful community. The political organizations, both parties, Republicans and Democrats, they recognize if you have faith in your resources and you use them when the time comes, and this is the time to use those resources, your voice will be heard. These bridges that we want to build, which is the topic of the symposium today, these bridges will be built when there is reconciliation from both sides. We are ready to build the bridges. We need the other side to stand up and step forward to build the bridges. Those bridges will be built when we fully realize our potential, and we have resources allocated to building bridges, training our youth, preparing them to take the charge, take the baton, and move us forward. I have seen the potential of our community. I have seen the potential personally, person to person, community to community. We are such a resourceful community. Some of the leaders that came and that spoke to you, they admit the resourcefulness of this community. We should have faith in that. That is where lies when some challenges worry us. What is going to be our future? That is our future. We are very much part of America. We are very much part of the protectors of America. There are over 5,000 Muslims serve in the armed forces of the United States today. In New York, there are more than 900 NYPD police officers that serve so bravely today. We are healers. We are healthcare providers of this country. We are professionals of all sorts of this country. Above all, we are the most patriotic citizens of this country. Therefore, we should fully appreciate and realize our potential, have faith in it. This country appreciates us. We will continue to be patriotic citizens of this country. So the work lies ahead. I urge you again at the conclusion that, please, this is the night to be generous. This is the night to show this organization that we appreciate its work, and we will continue to support so this good work continues. And hopefully when we meet next year, they will be able to announce that now we have 30 offices, not 3 or not 4. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you.
First of all, did you eat? Was it good? We'll give a round of applause to the workers who've been out here all day, working all day with workers. We appreciate you. I've been on the road since the election. This is my one-day home to see my family. I leave tomorrow for 10 more days and then we'll have our holiday. You ask me, well, what am I doing here? Why am I not at home? My children insisted that I come here tonight. They insisted. I want to say to you that I have some understanding of what you're going through. Sometimes God picks a people and puts a burden on a community, not to destroy them, but to develop them so that they can do something magnificent in His eyes. Sometimes that's what happens. I'm a 9th generation American. And I tell people this all the time. I'm a 9th generation American, but I'm the first one in my family born with all my rights. recognized by this government. I was born in 1968. I have a cousin, Kenya, who was born in 64 before they signed the last Civil Rights Acts. So I'm the first one in 9 generations born with all my rights. And it would be easy for me and easy for other African Americans to be bitter about our journey here. But I think most of us see it differently. It was through our struggle that America became America. You see, the founding of our country was 2 things and not one. And your role here is to complete something in America that's been a long time coming. The American Muslims have been called to save a great faith and a great nation at the same time. That's what you've been called to do. And this special burden and responsibility and opportunity is something that commands from the rest of us extreme honor and pride and solidarity, because America cannot be America until your community has a place of dignity and honor and respect by every single American. We can't be what we're supposed to be until your place is honored. Now let me say something about the country. At our founding, we were 2 things. The founding reality for America was ugly and unequal, according to Jefferson himself. That's not Van Jones, a CNN lefty dude, saying something bad. Don't freak out. If you were to go to Washington, D.C. right now and go to the Jefferson Memorial, and if you were to climb the steps, you would see in marble and stone Jefferson's own reflections on the founding of the country. And what Jefferson said about the country, Jefferson, who owned a Quran, by the way, but what Jefferson said about the country was this. He said, "I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just." I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just. That's not triumphalism. That's not, we did it. That's not, we've achieved perfection. That's Jefferson reflecting on the enslavement. And in my own imagination, I think maybe he was reflecting on the fact that even at that moment, women could not vote. Native American lands were being stolen. If you didn't own property, you couldn't vote. He said, "I tremble for my country." When he thought about the shortcomings, when he thought about the founding reality, he said, "I tremble. What will God do to a nation like this?" And if that's all that America was, this ugly founding moment with the enslavement of human beings honored in the document, women left out of the document, Native Americans considered savages and left out of the document, if that's all America was, that founding reality, it wouldn't command the love and respect of nations. But the truth is that America was always 2 things. Yes, there's that founding reality, but there was also the founding dream. Also the founding dream. And that very same Thomas Jefferson, if you just turn your head We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all are created equal. And that's what we are. This founding reality that was ugly, and this founding dream that's about equality, the most beautiful dream in the world. Who are we? What is an American? What makes us Americans? We have every color, every faith, every gender expression, every sexuality, every kind of human being ever born is right here in one country. What makes us Americans? We are that rainbow people, that many-colored people, that many-tongued people, that rainbow people unique in the world, that every generation tries to close the gap between that founding reality and the beauty of the founding dream. And every generation, we take one more step. We don't get there. We don't get to perfection, but we get closer to a more perfect union. And now it's your turn. This is the moment. This is the moment. This is the moment. God would not ever choose a people unworthy of this burden. African Americans, women, all of the groups that have come and taken us one step closer have been afraid, have had to comfort children, have had to walk down the street feeling vulnerable, have had to sacrifice money, and hopefully a little bit more money than y'all done so far. I think y'all supposed to. And we call those people in all the communities who step forward not victims, but victors. Victors. And not just for their own community. People sing, "We shall overcome," on 6 continents now. Because those African Americans in the South, facing ugliness, responded with a beauty undeniable in the ages. People talk about Dr. King and Fannie Lou Hamer and Ella Jo Baker and the student freedom riders all around the world. And they had fewer resources than you. They had less education than you. They had less standing and respect than you. But when they decided to stand up, they lifted the nation and the world and humanity to a new place. So don't go out of here feeling other than blessed by God. You are our best community. You are. This is undeniable. Nobody can hold a candle to what you've achieved. That's how great this responsibility is. God chose our strongest community. God chose our most beautiful community. God chose the community that all the other communities aspire to be like. You, with your faith, with your family, with your education, with your entrepreneurial zeal, with your respect for each other. You have been chosen because you have the strength to do it. Because you have the dignity to do it. They had a whole convention, the Democrats. Nobody can remember a single word that anybody said except Michelle Obama and the brother who was just up here. Nobody can remember a word. Nobody can remember a word. That's your community. That's the strength you bring to our country. I said it and I'll say it again. If a Muslim family moves next door to you, you better sing hallelujah, because the chances of your children getting in trouble just went way down. Because y'all know I'm right. Y'all ain't got to be modest tonight. Our best community. Our best community. This is the man. This man wants to fight this community. This man wants to take on this community. Oh, he's messing with the wrong folk. Messing with the wrong folk. So, I'll leave you with this. Don't overestimate what this man has achieved. You'll make wrong decisions. Your calculations will be off. Okay? $310 million Americans. The majority voted against him. Who voted? The election was won because 79,000 people in 3 states jumped the fence. And when you ask those people why they jumped the fence, they don't mention you. They don't. They mention the factory jobs that were lost. They mention the fact that the Democrats sometimes seem to be elitist and out of touch. They mention a sense of unease and some cultural anxieties, but they don't mention you. They don't. He doesn't have a mandate to do anything to you. Even the majority of the people who voted for him didn't vote for all of his nonsense. And the majority of the people voted against him. He created a little tiny hate-based movement, which is not to say that everybody who voted for him is a part of it, but there's a little hate-based movement, a little hate army that has taken over our government. All we have to do is stand up, be proud, be dignified, and build a massive love army to take it back. And that's what we're going to do. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.